Watch out, your waiter hates you, but it's probably not your fault. Alex Ralston wrote about the worst bits of his job for Piscine magazine, and then he read his story live on stage at our independent magazine night at the St Bride Foundation.
There's no real intro needed. This piece is it's a pretty self-explanatory piece. It's called "Beware, Your Waiter Hates You." So it starts on a drab, cold Saturday in early December, and I've stewed in bed all day, too hesitant to grasp the light that's been slipping away since I woke up hungover. Part of this hesitation is because there's a natural curfew to any daytime activities. It's already time to head for my shift from 5 o'clock until 10 at a restaurant in Glasgow's leafy West End. After a rudimentary ham sandwich, I put on my uniform, black shoes, black shirt, fascist black trousers, and joined thousands of others in the daily march to the city's restaurant for dinner service. The 10-minute walk to work surprisingly gives me just about time for 2 puffs of a cigarette, soundtracked by bass victims, air on a G-string, and electronics frankly seminal getting away with it. I arrive, wave hello to my colleagues, some are going, some are staying. I nip upstairs to put on my pinny and bitch with a colleague about the week's rota, before coming downstairs and looking at the bookings. Tonight will be busy. The atmosphere is tense as usual. By creating an atmosphere in which we are perennially afraid for our jobs and permanently on edge, our boss ensures that this tension remains a constant. This does get results, but the consistently efficient service we run comes at a cost to the people who work here. Effectively, every minute requires an exercise in concealment, whether from customers or from our evil paranoid boss. The lawless back of house is hidden from our diners out front, but getting a sort of low-level resentment towards everyone around us for being part of the anxieties, stresses, and boredoms of the shift. Constantly playing a hollow, smiley caricature of yourself isn't healthy, and it wears on us. The restaurant is now half full. The first round of the evening's bookings have been sat and their drinks orders taken. A party of 5 comes in and is sat at table 4. They order 2 espresso martinis, a strawberry daiquiri, a French martini, and do you know what? Cosmopolitan. This is their night out. They've not seen each other in ages, and they're excitedly chatting away. But as soon as the check has been put on, a near audible groan escapes the bar. You see, the large cocktail order is anathema to the front of house. We offer them because they're expensive and turn a good profit, but they are incredibly labor intensive. 5 cocktails of 4 different varieties will take 15 minutes, which means that for at least half an hour, we're going to be behind on food, which means that for at least another 10 minutes, we're going to be behind on drinks again. There's 5 other drinks checks waiting to be made in the rack, 3 in front of the table's large order, and already 2 behind. Customers are, of course, not to know this. They have no idea of their position within the check hierarchy. They're just waiting with increasing, if understandable, impatience. But one of the big party eventually flags me down like I'm a New York taxi to pointedly ask where their drinks are. I apologize profusely and assure them that they're just coming. A competition erupts behind the bars to who can make the most acid remark about them. The table of cocktailers aren't to know the knock-on effect of their order, which they're paying through the nose for. Customers rarely do anything that really justify our intermittent waves of anger. These people haven't been rude to us or done anything that would allow them to be fairly shunted to the category of arsehole or alternatively cunt. All they've done is choose from the drinks that the restaurant offers. But our boss angrily shoos us out from his station to the side of the bar and turfs us back onto the floor. My colleague on the floor smirks at me as our anger gives way to apathy. It's not yet gone 6. And yet we've already silently agreed that we'll be going to the pub to call off after the shift, no matter what. It's just gonna be one of those nights where no matter how polite or lovely or engaging or even kind the customers are, I'm gonna hate every single one of them. The drinks check is finally produced, the offending cocktailers thank us, and the temperature on the floor eases for a while as the rest of the drinks finally make their way to thirsty and grateful customers. The flow of the evening resumes its course. You see, the level of resentment I and other waitstaff often feel in this gig, simmering just under the surface, waiting for an excuse to make itself felt, is part of a much broader pattern. It's a structural affect, a consequence of our relative situation. I've met customers with whom I've felt such empathy, such genuine warmth, that they've moved me to tears. We have wonderful regulars whom I actually look forward to seeing as if they were old pals, as if they were coming in to meet me for coffee. But as time grates on, and the fractious relations between front of house, back of house, and boss assert themselves more and more, the humanity we afford customers lessens. When people walk through the door, they cease to be individuals with histories, baggage, great romances, hard-won perspectives, repositories of decades of memory. They just become work. something else to check in on, like the paninis in the toasty maker. The real tragedy of the job isn't the anxiety or the stress, it's the chipping away at your human empathy, your edges sanded down until you're finally an angry cog modeled in the institution's image. These people can't always really afford to pay for relatively expensive food and drink. None of them want us to be toiling away for them on minimum wage either, hence why they very regularly tip us. And if I'm honest, I sometimes feel ashamed of making someone pay nearly £12 for a large glass of white wine when the chef, his eyes already wider than the plates, has just commandeered a bottle of the same stuff to deglaze the sauce at no cost to himself. The hours are dreadful and the pay is nowhere near commensurate to the cost and exhaustion. But the customers have been ripped off at the restaurant too. Our respective exploitation is where the profit comes from. Our outbursts at each other, whether that be me slagging off a customer behind the bar or a customer making a seemingly pointless and, to be honest, stupid complaint, are all a reaction to our shared powerlessness in this situation. We become conduits for each other's frustrations. Working in Paris in the 1920s, the overquoted George Orwell observed that waiters lacked an effective trade union and were rarely socialists. He attributed this to our supposed snobbishness, arguing that we're all patrons in waiting, dreaming of inflicting our own horrid establishments on the poor general public. The moral, he's summarised, is never to be sorry for a waiter. The front of house are constantly afraid for their jobs. We'll have a few drinks, talk about starting a union and standing up to our boss, but none of us really want to take the plunge. We don't want to risk it, and we don't want to go through the arduous process of finding another job. Would-be employers will ask us, why did you leave the last one? And taking part in a wildcat strike in a mid-brow Italian restaurant will hardly be an appealing answer. And so the fractious grind continues. But I think customers are conscious of this state of things, and sometimes, as we do, they try to bridge the structural divide. When they make an effort to recognize our humanity, they're trying to break through the performance lines that they don't want nor really need it. What they're telling us they really were our age once, and that they empathize with us and more than appreciate the work we put into the smooth passage of their evening. What they're trying to say to us is that our seeming opposition isn't natural nor immutable, and not so far beneath the exterior of this particular environment. We are comrade. My boss breaks me away from my thoughts, asking me how many times he'll need to remind me before I get it through my thick skull that no more than one should be behind the bar at any one time. I take two mains out to table 9. A customer in his 60s, the timing of his drinks already collateral damage from the cocktailers on table 4, complains that he doesn't want chips with his battered haddock. He doesn't want chips with his fish and chips. As the customer is always right, and I can't suggest he simply not eat them for fear of appearing rude. Despite this being the sort of request my younger brother stopped making when he was about 8, I returned to the kitchen with his scalding hot plate and asked the chef to take the chips off, burning my hand in the process. If I'm annoyed that I've just burnt my hand, the chef, who has about 6 tables worth of checks to work through, is incandescent. Whilst loosing a tirade in which the words fucking and cunt feature heavily, which he asked me to relate word for word back to the customer, he takes each chip off the plate, one by one, and emphatically throws them across the kitchen and into the bin. I decide not to pass on his regards. The boss shuffles over to the customer's table, pulling up a chair and chatting for 15 minutes or so. Unfortunately, the restaurant has recently implemented a 2 cigarette per shift policy. My boss, a smoker and sadist, is enamored with this new power of denial, meaning I've not had a cigarette in about 3 hours. Betting that my boss will be at the table for a while, I nip out for a quick fag, a small burst of relief almost immediately drowned in crippling anxiety. If he comes back and catches me having an unsanctioned smoke break, I'm slightly worried he might fucking kill me. I finish my cigarette and slip back, relieved to find my boss still at the table. He beckons me over. He's having a glass of wine now and he introduces me properly, explaining what an asset to the business I am. And the customer, who could not bear chips on his plate, compliments my service. Conscious of the tobacco smell on my breath, I flash him a closed-lipped smile, thank him, and retreat behind the bar, tearing the smile from my face as soon as I cross its threshold. As customers begin to leave and the shift begins to wind down, I see a tray of drinks waiting to be taken to a table while one of my colleagues is aimlessly chatting behind the bar and changing the music to something bad. I had to stop myself from having a go at them for not having taken the order out. This is exactly how I've been institutionalized. This is exactly the dressing down my boss would have given me for some simple pause in the work for having a drink of water behind the bar, say, after going flat out for half an hour. I feel my boss's hands contorting my psyche more directly than ever. After this run of shifts, I realise I'm quitting. It's 11, and my colleagues and I go to a pub 10 minutes down the road. We try to unwind from the miserable stress of another long Saturday evening. We leave just before it's 1 a.m. close and start heading our separate ways. I've been dealt an all-day shift on the Sunday, meaning that it's just 10 hours time before I'll be back on the floor. I roll a cigarette, light it, and bruisely stroll home as the opening strains of Getting Away With It grace my ears once again. Thank you.